Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. Tony has the day off, so we've got a special snack for you.
Phil and Frank.
Oh, that was cool. Understated, not over the top, like that LeBron guy we used to have decades ago when he filled in.
I'm getting ready for All-Star Weekend. I'll be there tonight.
Where are you?
I'll be there tonight.
I don't think I've ever been to one of these without you here.
I'll be there tonight. Don't forget that ticket to the big party.
Welcome to PTI. I'm in Charlotte for NBA All-Star Weekend, and I'm pleased to be joined by our great friend from The Athletic, Mr. Frank Isola.
The crowd still loves me.
That's a lot of cheering for somebody who's tardy getting to Charlotte, but we'll talk about that later. We begin today with stunning news. The National Football League and Colin Kaepernick have settled their collusion case, and both sides have agreed to not comment further, so we will not immediately know, possibly ever, the amount of money, though probably lots, that Kaepernick and Eric Reid will be paid by the league for essentially colluding to keep them from being employed by member clubs. Frank, I'm here at the NBA All-Star Game. You know how many sports lawyers are around. Talk to some, and they see this, almost all of them, as an enormous takedown of the NFL. Is that how you see it? And ultimately, even if you do see it that way, what will it mean?
Now, this is what I call the Friday news dump by the NFL. How could it not be seen as a victory for Colin Kaepernick, who basically missed 2 years of his career? So that's why you mentioned it, Michael. Who knows how much money he could be getting in this settlement, because there is, as you said, a confidentiality agreement that they signed. You know, legal experts, they're saying, you know what? This is a draw for the NFL. I'm not buying it. They're avoiding a loss, and they're also avoiding not having to disclose emails, text messages, stuff that could be embarrassing to the league. Right. Absolutely. So you know what? The league is going to protect their owners. They're going to protect the shield, while, let's face it, they're also admitting on some level there was collusion here with Colin Kaepernick.
De facto admission of guilt, that they colluded, that Colin Kaepernick's freedom to express himself, in this case, in the context of, social justice, that it was so bad a thing, it was so offended them that they worked together to keep him unemployed in this context. And that is a hell of an admission, Frank. It ought to color further how we see the NFL. Bill Rhoden has written a book. A lot of us talk all the time about plantation mentality, and particularly in the context of the NFL and its owners and officials wanting to keep players under thumb and, if possible, deny them their rights. And that's what this is an admission of in a de facto sense. But I don't think it'll color anything. People want their football. They're not going to care in America. And the band plays on.
Well, let me ask you this. Eric Reid is involved in this, and he's already has a deal with the Panthers. Now, what is the future for Colin Kaepernick? Does he play? Maybe he joins the Panthers. Cam Newton is hurt. But maybe, some people are speculating, did he maybe agree not to seek employment from the NFL? So on the one hand, you have the NFL saying, there was collusion. But maybe at the age of 31, Colin Kaepernick is thinking, football, that's in my past. Now, what do you think the future holds for him?
Well, I don't think it involves playing in the NFL. I mean, just because these guys have to wind up paying some money out of their pockets and admitting this de facto guilt, it doesn't mean they want him, Frank. And you know how those owners are. This makes them even angrier in some cases to never have him. I think they will be stuck in their position. I don't see him playing in the NFL. I never saw it. I don't see it now.
It's really a fascinating story. All right, Michael, the Anthony Davis saga took a dramatic turn on Friday with the New Orleans Pelicans firing their general manager, DEMPS, and promoting Danny Ferry on an interim basis. The move comes hours after Davis injured his shoulder in a win over Oklahoma City and then left the arena before the game had ended. Pelicans head coach Alvin Gentry described the situation as, quote, a dumpster fire. That's pretty accurate. And apparently ownership agrees with him. Mike, does this move coming 2 weeks after Davis has to be traded, does it make sense to you?
Wow. Nothing that has happened in the last 2 weeks, Frank, makes sense to me regarding any of it. So was this a strong reaction to Anthony Davis leaving the building last night? And let's just if he was leaving the building to go, I don't know, get an MRI or seek a second opinion, would that be so offensive? And I don't know that that's the reason why he left. But if it is, are we talking about that being the offending move, or the inability to get him traded before the deadline, or just having him around now after the deadline passed? What is it that so offended ownership that they had to say to DEMPS now, after the fact, time to go?
You know, it's funny, Gail Benson, think about what she's gone through with the Saints losing the way they did in the NFC Championship game. Now, this whole thing with Anthony Davis, supposedly she was upset that he did leave the arena. And obviously, Alvin Gentry, you heard what he had said. Anthony Davis is no longer the lovable small market superstar. He's the guy that's impacting right now two franchises, both the Lakers and the Pelicans, and both of them are basically being sabotaged. Let's move on, though, to this point. Danny Ferry, right now, interim. He's a Spurs guy, so maybe he will get the job. We're hearing David Griffin. We know David Griffin's connection
should be
with LeBron
considered
James.
For any job.
I love
any GM job. David Griffin, I would.
But
hire.
How about this name, Mike Zarin of the Boston Celtics? Can you imagine if he got the job there? Would that be good for the Lakers?
Isn't that a heck of a conflict of interest, or no?
Why is it? He's getting a job. If he gets a job, he's a qualified guy. He gets a job in New Orleans. Who's he going to trade with? His guy Danny Ainge or Magic Johnson?
Well, here's the other thing, though. We don't know what Boston's going to have left after they either disappoint everybody or thrill everybody and get to the finals, disappoint everybody, doesn't get to the finals. I mean, if Kyrie Irving is on the move and there's still talk of that, you're not going to let Jason Tatum go if you don't know you can keep Kyrie Irving. I don't know that Boston is going to be in the absolute advantageous position that people are projecting in this moment, Frank. But there's a lot of intrigue going on here, man. New Orleans, twice now, they've been involved in these situations. Remember the Chris Paul situation, which I thought was absurd?
Hey, remember, too, David Stern in October was quoted in Sports Illustrated
about
referring to Dell Demps, calling him a lousy general manager. I think he was being a little unfair. And Dell Demps is the first domino to fall in this whole
Dell's taking the hit for this. I'm not sure what, if anything, he deserves. For people who thought this All-Star break was going to include the dumping of Luke Walton as coach of the Lakers, think again. The Los Angeles Times is reporting that Walton will definitely finish the season. This comes as a great surprise to a lot of people like Anthony Kornheiser, who were certain Walton would be out by Monday. What does he know? And it's also a sign that the Lakers have to climb in a foxhole now with the people they have, players and coaches. Frank, what, if anything, does this tell us further about the state of the Lakers?
You know, Bill Plaschke in the LA Times wrote an interesting column today where he said, you know, stories have come out now that LeBron wants to become an NBA owner one day. And this was Jeannie Buss's way of telling him, guess what? You don't own the Lakers. Luke Walton is staying. Now, on the one hand, it saves LeBron because all weekend long, he would have heard questions about Luke Walton. You know, is your coach going to lose his job? But by the other token, Luke Walton right now, why is their record what it is? It's because LeBron James has missed 18 games because of that groin injury.
Absolutely.
So that's the record. Now, the dysfunction, to be fair, has been caused by this whole Anthony Davis saga, and that also is in some ways linked to LeBron James. So LeBron is a big part of this. But to me, the biggest thing about that record is the 18 games that LeBron James has missed.
Well, the 18 games he's missed, I mean, suppose... Just look at what we think their record would be based on the first 18 games.
Yeah.
The Lakers would be solidly in a playoff spot. But now, one for me, the takeaway is, Frank, Luke Walton is a damn good coach, period. I'm not saying you can do with the Lakers right now, especially with LeBron injured, what was going on, what he did in Golden State, you know, further up north, the state, when Steve Kerr was away from the bench with his situation for a while, prolonged period. So, but I think Luke Walton is good enough to be coach here. Who is it that LeBron would want to bring in? And how can they afford to sort of start over when they are now in, 10th place behind Sacramento and the Clippers, two teams that hate them and would do anything to keep them out of the playoffs? Why would you need more dysfunction, more transition than with firing your coach? I wouldn't get that. I'm glad they made this decision.
Yeah, the guys that are available right now would be Tyronn Lue, Jason Kidd. Then you're hearing if they do something in the offseason, even Doc Rivers could be involved in the mix. When I look at the Lakers, though, it's interesting. You have Jeannie Buss and Luke Walton, Kurt Rambis works, there. Then you have Kobe Bryant, Rob Pelinka. Then you got Magic. And then you got, LeBron with Rich Paul. It seems to have, like a bit of a circus-like atmosphere. And let's face it, right now they're in 10th, like you mentioned, a game under 500. Can you imagine if LeBron and the Lakers don't make the playoffs as a 34-year-old?
No.
How much of a nightmare is that?
I can't imagine it, Frank, but I perhaps better get used to the idea. Although I still think they're going to make it. I still think they're going to wind up in 8th. But how about a 1-8 series Golden State Lakers to start the playoffs?
Yep.
Wow, talk about circus atmosphere.
All right, well, speaking of LeBron, he's annoyed that his trip to Virginia last Saturday to watch Zion Williamson and the rest of Duke's talented freshman class was described by some as a recruiting trip. LeBron, who attended the game with his agent, Rich Paul, told ESPN that perhaps his agent is, quote, a threat to everybody and that they want to keep trying to jab my agent and my friend. All right, Mike, should anyone, and I don't know who it was, have an issue with what LeBron did?
No, I certainly don't. I was at that game. The buzz when they walked in was unbelievable, Frank. But I also remember games I was covering in the college ranks. You know, for decades, NBA, current NBA players. I mean, I remember, you know, like Moses Malone and Julius Erving walking into some, you know, they'd be in another city and they come see a game, an ACC game, a Big East game. And so, oh, my God, and they sit there and they talk to the player. Afterward, the players were thrilled to play in front of them. People are so afraid of tampering. They are so tampering obsessed right now. That is the word I hate the most in sports today is tampering. People shut up. These kids were thrilled when LeBron James just took his seat and watched them play.
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure trip. It's also a business trip, though. Rich Paul is there. You know, a couple of summers ago, Rich Paul and LeBron had coffee. Now, Cam Reddish was going into his senior year of high school. They had coffee with Cam Reddish. Cam Reddish now plays for Duke. Just don't sit there and tell me that it's not a way. And every agent has done it.
Everyone is doing the same thing.
I'm not saying it's Rich Paul and it's LeBron. Right. Every agent has done this. They're going there to remind the players on Duke and maybe Zion Williamson.
Here we are.
Guess what? You want to be part of this group? This is my agent. Come join me. It happens all the time. My thing is, who was criticizing him? He's allowed to do that. Well, he has the ways and means to get there. Knock yourself out.
Everybody's a publisher now. The moment you buy a phone, you're a publisher.
Yeah.
And so somebody's going to be critical of this. And I was reminded, you know, there was a story told last night at the incredible Dwayne Wade roast. And I'm thinking, I think I remember Tim Hardaway and his agent, my late, great, dear friend, they were talking about, call Dwayne Wade. We got to talk to this kid. And this was a Chicago connection, okay? Both the agent and Hardaway and the camp of guys, Michael Finley, they were Chicago guys. And here was Dwayne Wade coming up, a young star in Chicago. It's like, hey, talk to this guy. See if he wants us to represent him.
You don't think David Falk leveraged Michael Jordan? Come on. I mean, and Patrick Ewing, of course.
Let me just say this. If there's an agent out there who's not doing whatever he can, using his or her resources to investigate and figure out who's available and when, they're not doing their job.
You're right.
Now that we're in the swing of spring training, there are sure to be solutions offered up as to how to clear up Major League Baseball's glut of unsigned free agents. Indian starting pitcher Trevor Bauer, who is often described as a free thinker, has offered his 1-year contracts for everybody.
Just like the rest of us.
He thinks long-term deals are inefficient for both sides, for the players looking for security and for the teams trying to avoid costly long-term commitments. Frank, is Bauer right that the time has come to put everybody on a 1-year deal?
I think owners just gave him a standing ovation in every sport, and the players' union and the players said, are you nuts? I mean, come on. First of all, if you think about the NFL, except for some of the high-end guys, a lot of the NFL guys are kind of on 1-year deals. But can you imagine David Price being on a 1-year deal? How about Giancarlo Stanton? How about John Wall and Chris Paul, the deals that they signed? You think their teams wouldn't mind getting out of those contracts? So I think in certain cases, yeah, you want to bet on yourself. I think most guys like the security of signing a 4, 5, 6-year deal. Nothing wrong with that.
And listen, management, of course, wants to avoid getting into long-term commitments. That's why remember, Frank, those contracts were 7 years at one point.
That's right.
And they came down to 6 and 5, and now most of them are 4. Yes, because management's looking for a way to get out of that, and players are indeed looking for long-term security for themselves. And that's the push and pull. That's the dance that both sides have to do, and neither side is going to decide, sorry, Mr. Bauer, that everybody should be on a 1-year deal. I bet you, I don't know, fewer than 50% of the club executives would be in favor of that, and fewer than 1% of players would be in favor of that.
Couple of things. 9 free agents this offseason in baseball signed contracts longer than 2 years. So owners are trying to reduce that. But
they are trying to reduce it, understandably.
Mike, just imagine the feeding frenzy for like the NBA and baseball if every year guys were on 1-year deals. Can you imagine the month of July in the NBA or the month of November in baseball? Where everyone's
guys
trying to fill out their
choosing
roster.
up sides.
That's right.
If people think that people are putting together super teams now, try 1-year deals.
You're right. The whole team would be a super team.
Let's take a break. Coming up, I will top-ranked Tennessee fare at Kentucky tomorrow.
And has the three-point contest eclipsed the dunk contest as Saturday's must-see event? The must-see event is Michael Wilbon at Dwayne Wade's roast. That's the must-see event.
No, not me. I mean, the guest list. Frank, you should have been here.
Pardon the interruption is brought to you by Advil.
Time to go head-to-head, mano-a-mano, tete-a-tete, in toss-up. Let's get the first one, Frank, from the producer
Let's go.
over the loudspeaker.
Toss up, who you got on Saturday, Tennessee or Kentucky?
Woo, this is a referendum to me, Frank, on old school basketball represented by Tennessee against the one and done Kentucky kids who it seems are always great. And I'm looking at Tennessee with Grant Williams, Admiral Schofield, Jordan Bone. These are juniors and seniors. And I'm thinking, wow, man, I know people are going to take Kentucky, particularly with the game at Lexington. I'm going to say that all that veteran experience stuff that we never talk about at the top of college basketball's pyramid anymore, I'm going to say that Tennessee is going to take this game.
I'm going to take Kentucky. Grant Williams, by the way, averaging 19 points a game. He scored just 8 a couple of days ago against South Carolina. Kentucky at home, remember, coming off that loss just the other day against LSU, that should have been basket interference. So John Calipari, he's all fired up. His team's fired up there at home. By the way, for Tennessee, over the next couple of weeks, 2 games against Kentucky. They also have to play LSU. We're going to learn a lot about Rick Barnes' team.
Yeah, that's going to be some schedule coming up. What's next?
Toss up more intriguing, the dunk contest or the three-point contest?
Frank, I don't know how you feel about this. This has become a three-point shooting contest for me, like, I don't know, as long as 15 years ago. I mean, look, there was a time when the dunk contest was bigger than anything All-Star Weekend. And, you know, when you had Vince Carter in it, you know, and that's relatively recently compared to Dominique and Jordan and all that stuff. But when I look at the three-point shooting contest, Steph and Seth, the Curry brothers, Seth Curry's shooting the three better than his brother, his celebrated brother so far this year. Heel, Devin Booker, my money's on him. Dirk, Kemba, Lillard, Joe Harris. It's a three-point shooting contest, Frank. There's no question.
Yeah, the game is in their hometown. Here's what I would have done if I was the NBA. Have Del Curry be in it. Del Curry could probably still shoot.
Great.
That'd be fun. So I think Steph will win it because he's at home. The other thing, Mike, will Dirk Nowitzki, will he make it all the way to all the balls? At his age?
Oh, that's cool.
Is he going to get it? I'm asking you.
Is Seth Curry's home, too? Is that like the Currys were raised in different states?
When I see you there tomorrow, we'll have a friendly wager on that one. I'm taking the older brother on this one.
All right, what's next?
Last one, toss up, who you got for the Stanley Cup, the Tampa Bay Lightning or the Field?
I'm taking the Field. Too many years, Frank, I've been undone by the points leader in the NHL. I know the Lightning, they're just lapping the Field. But so at times, I mean, in recent years, the Capitals, I mean, I often covered a team that did this several times, like 3 times, and did not win, didn't even get to the final. The Blackhawks, even after winning 3 cups, they were the points leader, and they didn't deliver. I think lost and got swept in the first round, I think, by Nashville a few years ago. So I'm going with the Field. How about you?
Well, here you go. The last 10 years, the team with the best regular season record, of course, you get the President's Trophy. In the last 10 years, only one team has gone on to win the Stanley Cup. Your Chicago Blackhawks.
Well, that must have been the middle cup.
And here's the thing. The last 5 years, the team with the best record in the regular season didn't even make it to the Stanley Cup final. I'm taking the Field. I'm with you on this one.
Yeah,
Steph Curry and the Field.
President's Trophy, no guarantee of anything. No more toss-up. Let's take one last break, but still to come. Antonio Brown agrees to meet with Steelers ownership. Uh-oh.
And what should we expect out of Tiger Woods after his first round at Riviera?
Is it still raining out there? Or just whatever happened to it never rains in California?
I'll bet you he'll pay his caddy. I'll give him that.
At Domino's, we love pizza as much as you do. That's why we're giving you Piece of the Pie rewards points for eating any pizza from anywhere.
Pizza from here?
Yep.
How about from here?
That's right.
Homemade pizza?
I guess.
Homemade pizza?
That's a little better.
What about anchovy?
Any toppings.
New York style? Deep dish.
Any pizza.
What?
Time to get happy, people. Happy 70th birthday, Kenny Anderson. It's time for a history lesson, boys and girls. Passing accuracy was not invented in the 2000s. Cincinnati's Anderson from tiny Augustana College completed over 70% of his passes in 1982, 1 year after being named the league's MVP. I'm talking about throwing the ball down the field, not these checkdowns and 2-yard dump-offs to pad stats.
Remember that AFC Championship game, 1982 against San Diego, 23 below with the wind chill.
Unbelievable.
By the way, Boomer Esiason ended up replacing Ken Anderson as quarterback.
That's right. Of course, Chris Collinsworth was catching passes from both those guys. Happy anniversary, Shaq. On this day 10 years ago, you teamed up with the Jabberwockies for a memorable All-Star Game introduction dance. Shaq scored 17 points in 11 minutes. Ended up sharing MVP honors with Kobe. But this intro, this is like the greatest thing I've seen in the last 25 years at the All-Star Game, Frank.
Mike, you and I were there. Shaquille O'Neal was made for All-Star Weekend. He is the ultimate entertainer, really.
And he's here. He's holding court right here, right now.
Yep.
Happy trails to Olympiacos, trailing by 15 at the half in the Greek Cup semis. David Blatt's team just didn't come back. They just didn't come back to the court, Frank. He and his players were upset with the refs and just booked. The team that benefited and advanced, Rick Pitino's Panathinaikos. Frank, could you ever see this happening in the NBA?
Hey, it's two former NBA head coaches. Rick Pitino,
Yes,
you know what? Good win for him. He wants to get back to the U.S.
Don't try this at home.
Yep.
One admission. Matt Kuchar announced today he will give the caddy he employed in Mexico what he asked for, which was $50,000. Good. We're running out of time. Let's get to the big finish. Ian Rappaport says Antonio Brown has reversed course, is going to meet with the Steelers ownership. Is this a big deal?
I think it is. I think that means maybe he wants to be back and they want him back. The Broncos are likely to part ways with linebacker Brandon Marshall. Are you surprised?
A little bit, but he has been hurt for 2 of the last 3 seasons. You know what that means in the NFL. They can get rid of you. Louis Severino got a 4-year, $40 million extension from the Yanks. Is that fair?
You know what? 10 years ago, he would have gotten $6 or $7 million. 4-year contract for a pitcher. I think that's pretty good. NBA Rising Stars Challenge. It's tonight, Mike. You'll be there. Who will you be watching?
You can't not watch Doncic and Ben Simmons, particularly on the same team, right? Last one, Tiger shot 1 under 70 at Riviera today. What do you expect the rest of the weekend, Frank?
Well, he's back on the course. They're going to play 36 today. He's 1 under. Jordan Spieth 7 under. You tell me. You're the golf guy. How do you think he'll do?
I think Tiger, I know that he doesn't have a lot of good luck at Riviera historically. I think Tiger's going to go low on Saturday, moving day.
All right, we're out of time. Thanks for watching. I'm Frank Isola.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Have a great weekend, knuckleheads. You can get the PTI podcast on the ESPN app or Apple Podcast. Frank, get to the airport.
I get in at 11. Pick me up.